with land, we actually didn't have to know almost anything about houses. We had to figure out how much it's worth, how to find it, figure out some marketing and how to sell it. That's it.
What's the most you made in one day?
3 million.
3 million profit.
There's probably 2,000 people doing this part or full time around the country right now. And there's probably more house flippers than that in Vegas on its own.
Are you actually buying them with your money and then just putting them on the market and waiting to sell? Or are you like locking them up and then trying to wholesale? How's that go?
We teach this pyramid of wealth creation. The bottom part is simply land flipping. The next thing comes land splitting. The simplest way to 10x your profits is by taking, like, say, a 10-acre parcel you find somewhere on a road outside of town, and usually would flip it for $30,000 profit, but by splitting it into 10 lots, you now make $30,000 a pop, and you make $300,000 on the deal. The next level up is actually...
What's up, wealth builders? Today, I've got a real estate expert on to talk about land. Now, here's the thing. You know, there's not many land guys out there. And I myself have actually started to become a land guy. You know, my best deal ever is the mountain I bought a few years ago that's already appreciated millions of dollars. And, you know, we've got a property under contract in Costa Rica that's land, and I'm looking at other pieces of land. I want to build golf courses and communities and everything else. So I'm very interested in land, and that's why I want to have this guy on, because he has done over 4,500 land deals, which is crazy. I've got none other than Jack Bosch. What's up, man?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Yeah, happy to have you in Vegas.
Thank you. I always like to come to Vegas. Gonna be a quick in and out trip this time, but I like to come for the restaurants here. It's awesome food here.
I think I remember you saying you like to gamble too.
No, actually, well, no, I'll take $200 and I play blackjack, and basically then if I win, I put it in my left pocket, and if I lose, and at the end, once I'm out of money, I see what I have left over, I cash it in. That's it. I don't gamble really.
Yeah. That's funny. So the way you and I met was in a mastermind called Collective Genius.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you were given a presentation about your education company and how you wanted to scale it and be the best and like really provide this amazing experience. And, you know, I've heard really good things from other people about it. And I just remember coming to you at the time. I like had a very small education company, and I was like, bro, tell me how you did it. What's this look like and that look like? And you gave me a lot of good feedback. And I think you had told me you had worked for, was it Kiyosaki before or something? Who was it?
I was a speaker invited to some of the Kiyosaki fulfillment events, and some of the events where he spoke, I spoke to. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, that was really helpful for us to help figure those things out. So that definitely helped. And then, you know, over time, and you then reached out to me about growing on social media, and so we've been able to work that way together, and so It's been good, man.
That was awesome. Like I struggled on social media forever, and then when I reached out to you and worked with some of your team members, I think within like 60 days I went from like 5,000 followers to like 50,000, and within a matter of like I think about 8 months we're at combined different platforms over 200,000 followers, and now we're around 300,000 right now.
I love it. Well, there you go, guys. Pineda Media. Go check it out. Best testimonial. So you told me also, too, like at Collective Genius, they have the belt. You said you got your first belt finally?
I did, yes. So basically at Collective Genius, for those who don't know, it's a mastermind of the top real estate investors in the country. And you get to, every once in a while, like only if you go 4 times a year, only twice a year, once or twice a year, get to do a presentation.
Yeah.
But then they vote who has the best presentation of them, and I was one of the winners there. Yeah, last time.
What'd you present on?
I presented actually on a strategy to not just make money, but to actually build what you make into lasting wealth and how to protect it.
What's the 2-minute version of how to do it?
So the 2-minute version is basically make more money, invest that money, and protect that money, but invest it into assets that's cash flow.
Right.
But we basically follow the process ourselves, and now we share it with our audiences. Basically, you set 3 goals, and the first goal you set is like, how much cash flow do I need in my life to pay my cost of living at a very basic level?
Right.
And we call that a security plan. And for most people, if you add it all up, your mortgage, your rent, all of these pieces together, mortgage, rent, car payment, food, electricity, insurances, things like that, most people can absolutely live at $7,500 a month, or sometimes even less, and have that security plan in place. So therefore, that's what we did when we were starting out. We like put a laser focus on that. So like about $7,500 a month in passive cash flow. That's what we need to basically be able to quit and live at that normal level. Now, I mean, this is a normal house in the suburbs, one car, not a Ferrari, like a Toyota kind of thing level. But that's obviously not where you stop. It just becomes a target. The second goal is then the comfort level. The comfort plan is the plan where you basically say, well, what if I want to live in a 3,000 square foot home or 3,500 square foot home with 2 cars, take some nicer vacations, and and most people can do that lifestyle between $10,000 and $15,000 a month.
Yeah.
And then above that is the luxury plan. So basically, by setting these things in place, you have a milestone set.
Yeah.
Because most people don't have that milestone. They just want more.
Yeah.
Well, what does more mean? More means nothing for most people. And more means they don't have a goal. I asked my former assistant many years ago, is like, what's your number? And she's like, well, I would like to have like $10 million.
Yeah.
I was like, well, why $10 million? She's like, yeah, because I think it sounds like it's enough for me to live on.
Yeah.
But it's like pulled out of thin air.
Yeah.
Instead, if she would have set the goal of $7,500 a month, she could have chipped away at that. Every rental property is $500 a month. Every whatever investment, dividend investment is this. Every whatever certain services, certain things, and obviously with land flipping, we have passive cash flow because we sell it to seller financing. All of those things play a role and start building up your cash flow, and soon enough you're there.
Right.
And that point, and then the next point though is to build a moat around it. So once you have these assets, you need to protect them really fiercely. And what we have basically we have a certain amount of assets that we will not touch for anything. We will never risk them. We'll never use them. We'll never leverage them. I mean, they're leveraged, but they're very conservatively leveraged. And that's just basically, that's off to the side. It's untouchable. And what it really allows you to do is, if you have this crazy new business idea and you go out there, it's like in the old days, like the castle with a moat around it.
Yeah, yeah.
And you put the drawbridge down, you get an army, you go out there, you fight a new war, you win, great. You come back with new riches, you expand your moat, you're happy, everything is good. You built the castle even bigger.
Yeah.
Built the moat even bigger. But if you lose, you still got your castle. With a moat around.
Right.
You lose, you come back with arrows in your back, you come back, you retreat into your castle, you lick your wounds, but your cash flow still comes in. Your assets are still protected, and you didn't risk those core assets that are there to provide for you for the rest of your life. And basically by combining those two things, first of all, have an income plan that you can follow, and then also have almost like an asset protection plan. You're really creating you're creating an offensive and defensive structure that creates an almost like impenetrable lifestyle at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's great. I think, to your point, you got to first get good at making active income.
Right.
Then you start buying assets that, are going to appreciate, pay you, all those things. And then, I do like what you say about protecting a certain part. And that's something I guess I'm bad at, because I'm just like, let's freaking go. I'm ready to roll, baby.
But you also, how old are you?
34.
34. I'm 53, right?
Yeah.
So it starts, and that actually, I never thought it would happen, but it starts changing as you go to like over your 50s. You're like, you know what? If I'm in my 70s or so, I don't want to have to kind of rebuild everything if one of these things goes really, really bad.
Right.
So let me start just putting stuff off to the sideline that is just putting out cash flow. Like we have a 90-unit apartment complex in North Carolina that Michelle and I own without any investors, that produces a tremendous amount of cash flow, that has a 10-year, 3.5% interest rate loan on it, that is just untouchable. Right?
Yeah, you'll never sell it. You're not going to do anything
exactly,
with it.
And it just keeps getting better and better and better over time. And we have other assets like that just produce. I'm never going to go and say, well, I can get an extra $4 million out of that thing and then invest in this high risk kind of thing, because if that dies, well, my cash flow is gone and my asset is at risk, and just don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
20 years ago, I would have done it.
Okay.
Because you got
I can rebuild.
Plenty of time to recover and so on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've definitely, like I said, I built a castle. I've taken arrows. I've done all those things.
We all have.
Yeah. It takes, to be successful, you got to take a lot of arrows, and you're going to have failure, and that's just part of it.
Yeah. You have to have a high tolerance for drama.
You do, for sure. So that's what got you the belt, that
presentation, yeah.
Have you had other better presentations where you're like, dude, how did I not win the belt?
Yes, I did. I did, but then there was somebody else who had an even better one. So
That's funny.
It's all good.
I'll say, I don't know. I guess I'll just bring it up because it's the truth. But so I haven't been to a CG in a while, but I've only given 3 presentations in the span of, I don't know, 4 years, and I've won every time.
There we
so
go.
I'm 3 for 3. And I just kind of retired. I'm like, I'm
there
done.
You go. Here's the master.
I'm not giving any more presentations because like when I go in there, I tell them something they've never heard. I'm like, yo, I'm going to tell you guys something that's none of you guys are doing that. Because I'm trying like so many things that people in the real estate space they're just not exposed to it. Because like when you're just only thinking about real estate and talking to sellers, and your mind isn't like opened to all these other things that people do in other industries.
Right. I think the reason absolutely 100% right. I think the reason I won in that particular one is because of the tail end of the presentation. Because everyone is already, which is the asset protection part, because everyone is already in that mastermind. Everyone is focused on one thing, which is like grow. How can I do more? How can I get more houses? How can I flip more houses? How can I wholesale more houses? How can I make more money and more money and more money? But nobody thinks about like, okay, so how do I turn this into something that allows me to, if I want to actually slow down.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that everyone was like, okay, well, there's a strategy right there for me to slow down, because obviously I gave more detail than what I have here right now.
Yeah.
So.
No, I love that. That's amazing. Entrepreneurs, if you want to grow your business, there is no better investment than your own personal brand. The smartest thing I ever did was start creating content and investing into my brand. Ever since then, we've been able to triple our business. I've been able to raise more money than ever to continue buying more real estate. And it's all because I create content just like this. Now, a lot of people have asked me, Ryan, how am I supposed to do it? I don't know where to start. I don't know who's going to edit it. I don't know even what kind of setup or camera or anything to do. Well, here's the thing. We can help you with all of that at Pineda Media. We have a podcast checklist that you can actually get for free at pinedamedia.com that's going to go over everything you need on starting a podcast. But to make matters even better, we'll actually edit your podcast for you. We'll repurpose it into short form clips like you see on my Instagram and my TikTok, so that people will start seeing those clips and watching your podcast, and in turn, being customers or investors in your business. So if you want the one-stop solution where you can get everything done for you, plus get the education you need to grow your personal brand, then you need to go to pinedamedia.com and book a free call with our team. You can also go get that free podcast checklist and that training program absolutely free by just going there. So go check it out. Let's talk about land, dude. So you've done 4,500 deals. You've obviously used profits from land to buy apartments and other assets, and now you teach people how to do land. So how did it get started?
So it got started by us not really knowing what to do about real estate. So I'm from Germany originally. Michelle, my wife, is and co-founder and business partner, is from Honduras in Central America. So we both came here with nothing, no idea, broken English. And we basically, after a couple of years in corporate America, we hated it and we wanted to get out, and we looked for something, and we wanted to get into real estate, but we just couldn't get anything to going in real estate. Like I don't know if we're stupid or what, something. Or
when was this?
That was like 2000, starting about 2000.
Did you guys meet in the States, or you met?
Okay. I came to college here for a 1-year exchange program and our masters, and 3 weeks into it, I saw this young lady walk by, and it's like, who is that one? Yeah. And had to chase her for like half a year for her to give in, and now we're married 22 years.
That's good. That's good follow up.
And that's right. And so bottom line is we tried, like we decided to go into real estate, but we knew nothing about it. So we knew nothing about estimating repairs. We knew nothing about really nothing. And back then there wasn't, we're talking about 2000, people still had dial-up internet. Yeah. Like, which basically like a web page would take 2 minutes to load and so on. And so you couldn't just go online and search Google and search YouTube and search all this kind of thing. So it was a different world. So the amount of information that was available was for free was almost nothing. Yeah. You had to, and we were kind of broke. So we just tried to wing it, and we failed with our first wholesale because we estimated every repair wrong.
Yeah.
So basically nobody would buy it. So we backed out of the deal. We wanted to do a rehab. We didn't have any credit, didn't have any money, didn't know how to get how to get a hold of like private money lenders. And I'm glad we didn't do it because we would have lost our shirt. Then we transitioned to tax lien investing, right? Rich Dad Poor Dad, like so many. And halfway through, he talks about making 16% on tax liens. I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah.
So I read up on that, and so we ended up buying some tax liens, and they got redeemed 3 weeks later, and we made $3.82. We're like, okay, well, that didn't work. And then finally, we came across, still in the tax delinquent world, we basically asked ourselves if we came across tax deed auctions, and even there, we attended, and nobody bought, and we were outbid left and right.
Right.
But then we had a thought, and that thought was very simply, hey, if somebody lets their property go to a tax deed auction, then they apparently must not want that property anymore.
Right.
Because otherwise they would figure out how to pay those properties taxes, or they would just go and sell it. And they just must be fed up to here with that property and just let it go. And so we had the thought like, well, why are we attending these auctions? Why are we not contacting the owners directly? And back then, nobody went after tax delinquent data as a lead source for houses or for anything like that. So very few people did, because it was very, very hard to get. Data sources, like any kind of the data sources like CoreLogic and so on, didn't have that data. If you call them, we called them, none of them had that data they didn't have tax delinquent data. We don't have that. And so we had to go it the hard way. We actually literally had to go contact the county, talk to somebody there, and finally have them send us a CD with the data, cleaning it up ourselves. But then we sent out direct mail, and we got a lot of people contacting us back. But surprisingly, every single person that called us back had land. Nobody, the house owners wouldn't call us back, only the landowners. And the landowners basically all told us the same thing. They're like, yeah, I inherited that thing. I own it for 30 years. I don't want it anymore. Yeah, I'm ready to let it go. If you pay me something, I'll take it. And we're like, okay. So the first guy, we paid $400, including back taxes, for a $10,000 infill lot in a small town.
Yeah.
And we sold it the same day to the neighbor for $4,000.
Right.
We're like, okay, now we didn't have to know about real estate. We didn't have to know about tenant installed termites. We didn't have to know about repair costs. We didn't have to know about the rehabs and permits, because we did absolutely nothing to that property.
Yeah.
We just basically put it under contract, put a for sale by owner sign on there. The neighbor literally walked across the street with his cowboy hat and basically said, hey, what do you want for the property? Had no negotiation skills, nothing. He says, like, I'll offer you $4,000.
You just took it.
And I just took it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I figured out that he didn't even want to build on it. The fact is, he had his house here. Here was his house. Across the street was his property, and behind it was a fence. He owned the farm behind the fence. And he wanted this as a driveway to his farm.
Oh,
so
he would have paid a lot more.
He would have paid a lot more for it, but it doesn't matter. We 10x our money on the deal.
Yeah.
Next deal, we then got same thing, tax delinquent deal for 40 acres for $500. Sold
Where's this at?
Now that is in the middle of nowhere in Arizona.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, okay.
So that's a rural area, but on a road. And
It's got a road. It exists.
It exists, exactly. We actually drove there back then because Google Earth, Google Maps, Google Street View did not exist yet.
Yeah.
And
so you didn't even know what you're like, I'm just gonna go see what's here.
Exactly. We rented actually cars. We didn't even have an SUV yet. We would literally go to Hertz or something, rent an SUV, and beat the crap out of that car, drive it, like off-road it, which the car rentals don't even want you to do.
Yep.
So it was actually against the rule. But then afterwards we would wash it.
Yep.
And we would bring it back. And so we did that week after week until we had made a bunch of money. And then we bought a 4Runner with that. And then for the next few years, we went with a 4Runner. And then Google Maps, Google Earth, Google Street View, county, GIS information systems, all this kind of satellite images, all came up online. And since 2007, we haven't seen a single piece of land in person anymore.
Okay.
But for the first few years, we went up there. And that's, since we live in Arizona, we started in Arizona and then in Southern California and then New Mexico, because it's all the places we could still drive to in a reasonable time, 5-6 hour drive. Southern Utah, and so we could do that. But since that, we have done deals now in 17 states in over 100 different counties, done deals from Hawaii to Indiana to Florida to you name it, all over the country, and not seen any one of those. But then again, landowners would come, and soon enough we realized that with land, we actually didn't have to know almost anything about houses. We had to figure out how much it's worth. We had to figure out how to find it. We had to figure out
Who to sell it to.
who to sell it to, and and kind of some basic things like, is it on a road? Does it have utilities?
Yeah.
And so on, and then figure out some marketing and how to sell it. That's it.
Right.
So that simplifies the game a lot. And after about a dozen deals, we says like, you know what? Forget about houses. So we put the blinders on, and for the next 5 years, we solely focused on land and did not even touch a single house. Period. We just did, I don't know, 1,500 deals or something like that in the next few years. And until 2008, when the market started shifting. And then by that point, we had obviously done really, really well, built that into an 8-figure business. And now we looked up and we're like, hey, America is for sale. Because all of a sudden, like $200,000 houses were for sale for $40,000.
Yeah.
And we started going shopping.
Got it. So you made the pivot because there's just such a great opportunity.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So what happened from there? You just start buying up these cheap homes because you made so much money in land?
Well, we continue flipping land to this day.
Yeah.
But we did two things. First, with our cash flow, because again, we sell land in two different ways. One is wholesale.
Yep.
Just simply take that deal like for $10,000 lot, get it for $400, sell it for $4,000. $20,000 40-acre parcel, get it for $500, sell it for $10,000. Like do that all day long. And but then also soon enough, people would come to us and say like, hey, you're listing this property for $30,000. We bought it for $3 million. Can I buy it from you for $30,000 with a $5,000 down payment?
Yeah.
And monthly payments? We're like, cash flow from land?
Didn't know this was a thing.
Exactly. Did not know that was a thing. So we was like, sure, let's do that. And we started building up that cash flow. And by 2008, we had built that up to about $71,000 a month. And that allowed us
Those were
to
seller finance payments.
Seller finance payments, 100% profit, because usually the down payment already paid for what you paid for the property.
Right.
And to this day, that's the case. And so with that cash flow on its own, plus the cash from wholesale deals, we were able to buy sometimes 3 or 4 houses a month cash. So we would do that for a couple of years, just bought houses cash. And then after that, starting transitioning also to multifamily and buying more of these things, but always doing land deals at the same time. And then the second thing we decided, or in this case, the third thing, we also decided in 2008 that when I went to like Real Estate Investor Association meetings and things, and I talked to people, and they were all like, blood was on the street. They were losing their shirt. Nothing was working anymore, and except for short sales where they're working at the time.
Yeah.
Our land business continued to work
Right.
at that time. We were continuing to do lots of deals, just the deals had changed. Obviously, our market was not unaffected. But instead of like putting a deal on a contract for $30,000 and selling it for $70,000, now we put the deal on a contract for $15,000 and sold it for $30,000.
Right.
So our margins were cut in half, but we were still making $15,000 deals, $20,000 deals, $10,000 deals, and so on. So we were continuously selling, and we shifted from a live sale. We did large land auctions in the 2002, 2008 time period, where we bought about 250 properties a quarter, and we would go and sell them in one day at a big live auction with 800 people there, 500 people online bidding, and we would sell several $1 million worth of land in one day. That was fun.
Yeah.
It was a fun experience.
What's the most you made in one day doing that?
$3 million.
$3 million profit.
Profit in one day.
That's crazy.
That is not taking into consideration the seller financing interest. So probably over time that turned into like $5 million.
Oh, because you would sell it in auction on terms.
Whichever way, the purchase price, and they would sit down, and we had about 35 trained real estate agents there, and because they're signing contract, it has to be real estate agents, otherwise you're in violation of whatever rules, and we basically had a contract where they could choose right there in that moment, do I put 20% down and finance the rest, or do I pay cash? And what about 60, 40, 60% would take financing, 40% would take cash.
How'd you get so many people at the auction?
We spent about $200,000 in advertising.
Okay, I got it. But what did the ad say?
Mega land auction. That was the word back then. Mega land auction.
Were they all in the same spot? Like they were all in Arizona?
Mostly in Arizona. We did one in New Mexico. And then we were about to branch out and do it in more states when the market shifted on us.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, the process didn't stop working. Just the exit strategy stopped working.
Yeah.
These large land auctions stopped working. We would have to start now spending $250,000, $300,000 in advertising, and instead of 800 people, get 300 people in the auction.
Got it.
And we started, and the numbers wouldn't work anymore.
Right.
So at that point, we then shift. Luckily, at that point, though, the internet was at the point, online was at the point that everyone had fast internet. Everyone had, right now, all these websites. Google was around, right? And Facebook was around, and all these different different places that you could place, that people could find you were around. Now we transitioned to like Google advertising and one-on-one sales, and websites like landwatch.com and land.com were around, and Facebook marketing then afterwards came up, and Craigslist was around at that time. So we could start switching from these live auctions to a one-on-one sale model, and just simply put every property separately out there and sell, instead of 250 properties in one day and then nothing in 3 months, we would now sell 30, 40, 50 properties a month and continue our sales. And at that moment, we realized also that, particularly also with blood on the streets and people, the other real estate methods no longer working, or at least temporarily not working, we realized that we actually need to teach this, because at that point, there were like 10 land flippers in the entire country doing this. There was like no competition whatsoever. And even now, 15 years later, there's probably 2,000 people doing this part or full time around the country right now, and there's probably more house flippers than that in Vegas on its own. Right? So we're still having a very little competition, and so that's the third decision. We then decided to also teach it, so we started putting a home study course out, and then later on offering coaching and so on, and we're doing that for now 15 years too.
Yeah, that's also crazy, being in the coaching business for 15 years.
Yeah.
Like that, to have that longevity is hard.
That is hard, because it's not a simple business, as you know.
No, and I've seen,
like easy business.
Well, like I saw all the big companies get shut down. Right. Like back in probably right when you started, and then there's kind of like this lull where nobody's like really doing a lot, and then now with social media, lots of people want to start programs, and they realize it's really hard to do, and so they don't do it. Like I'll tell you this. The real estate investors I know that, they're obviously crushing it in real estate, and like they're legit, and they're like, dude, I'm going to start coaching. Everybody's asking me how. And then they go do it, and they realize like it's a totally different ball game, and it's a totally different business to run. And truthfully, they're better off just focusing on their real estate business, because they'll make more over there just with the focus versus trying to go over here.
And it's and particularly if you want to do it right, it's a really heavy lift. I mean, I walked through your office. Yeah. You have tons of staff members here. Yep. You have tons of support. You have tons of, because working with a beginning investor that is confused, that is fearful, I mean, rightfully so, because they're spending good money on something, and they've gotten scammed by people, and they've gotten programs where there's nothing behind it. So when they work with to do it right, is a heavy lift. It's a complex business. There's a lot of people involved. I mean, we have 80 people in our company, in our coaching side of our company.
It's crazy.
And 40 of them are just in the coaching part of division. They're just making sure our students are successful, reaching out, having one-on-ones, having group coaching sessions, following up, making sure they're understanding, like digging, following, like hunting down, I would say that in a good way, the people who kind of like disappeared on us, because sometimes they might have a mindset lull, and they're like depressed or something, because not every day is a beautiful day. So we're like, no, we're not just going to abandon you. We're going to go find you and going to see, what are you struggling with? Let's bring you back to the table, because this works. And if you just do these steps, you can actually make it happen. That's a heavy lift, and not everyone is ready to do that.
No. And on top of that, just the lift of marketing and sales.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like you said, customer acquisition's a lot, and people incorrectly think like, oh, all these people are asking me, like this is going to crush. And it's like, okay, when you launch, you're going to get the people who have been asking you maybe. And then after that, now what?
Exactly.
You got to go get the people who don't know you.
Those first 25 people,
that part's easy.
They're gone, and then they're taking action, and then boom, it goes down to zero after that.
Yep.
No, exactly.
So, Wealth Builders, if you are trying to grow your real estate investing business, then you need to join us at Wealthy Investor. If you have no idea what Wealthy Investor is, it is our coaching program and community. We have helped thousands of students worldwide grow their business. Now, it doesn't matter if you're just getting started and you're trying to get that first deal. We can help you do that. If you're trying to scale your business and go from a few deals a year to a few deals a month, or even 7 figures a year, we can help you do that too. In fact, last year alone, we had over 30 students do over $1 million in revenue. And I'd love for you to be the next one. So it's pretty simple. If you're trying to grow your business and wholesale more homes or flip more homes or buy more rental properties, then you need to go to wealthyinvestor.com and book a free call with our team. It's super simple. We'll go on a strategy call with you and figure out how we can help you grow according to your needs. So all you got to do is go to wealthyinvestor.com, book the free call with the team, and we'll see you there. For anyone thinking about starting a coaching program, my advice is, one, it always looks, I guess, sexy in the beginning because you're like, oh, dude, this is like, I got all this demand, the margins are good and et cetera. And then you realize what happens is, all right, you just sold 20 and now you got them for a year and next month you didn't sell any. And then like you really average it out over the year and you're like, that was a lot of work to, train.
And most coaching is trading hours for dollars too, because you do it yourself most of the time.
Yeah.
And at the beginning you do it yourself, and now it starts sucking your time out of you, and you don't have time for other things in life anymore. And if you're a born teacher, that's great for a while, but if you want to then scale it up, then the hard part is finding people that are just as passionate and just as good as you to then teach, and you become the business owner, the entrepreneur, and that's a hard transition to do. It took us a while to do that, but yeah, we have 16 coaches now that coach, and they're
and I would guess a lot of them are former students too.
Oh, all of them. Every single one of them went through our coaching program. Yep. Every single one of them is now doing between 30 high end, or I just talked to two of our coaches. They're doing about 250 deals a year. Yeah. And so you're learning from people that are at the same level that we are, basically.
Yeah. So let's talk about land, right? So you're talking about just normal flips as one scenario. So you buy it for $5,000, you sell it for $20,000 or whatever. Yep. Are you actually buying them with your money and then just putting them on the market and waiting to sell? Or are you like locking them up and then trying to wholesale? How's that go?
The way we teach it and the way most people do it and the way we also do it is we lock them up. And now, because most students coming in, they don't want to lock a deal up and then get stuck with a deal that they might, if they don't understand the marketing, you might get stuck with a deal. So we don't ever want anyone to get stuck with a deal.
Right.
So the nice part about land is that, number one, it's owned free and clear.
Yeah.
Most land under a couple $100,000 is owned free and clear, because banks don't ever want to give money on land, or if they do, they give you money on an infill lot in the city ready to build on, but even there they give you 50 cents on the dollar, like 50% loan to value.
Yep.
So you have a $200,000 lot, you have to come up with $100,000. Most people don't have that. So what happens is, but in most cases the banks say no anyway. So most of the land that we're dealing with falls into three categories: either infill lots, or like 1 to 10 acre parcels in the path of growth on the outskirts of town, or larger acreage in the more recreational areas. And particularly the last two, most banks will not give you money for those.
When you say the recreational areas, you mean the middle of nowhere?
I mean, like, well, you live in Vegas, so Vegas is a special kind of deal. Outside of Vegas, it's truly the middle of nowhere.
It's literally the middle of nowhere.
Like, I live in Phoenix. 2 hours from Phoenix is a city called Flagstaff.
Yeah.
In Phoenix, it's 110 degrees in summer, just like in Vegas.
Yep.
But in 2 hours, I'm in Flagstaff, where it's 78 degrees, pine trees, lakes. In winter, they're skiing. It's not great skiing, but they're skiing, right? And and there's lots of land available.
Yeah.
So when I talk recreational area, what I mean is a couple of hours from a metropolitan area. But that recreational area is actually attractive.
What about the middle of nowhere?
If you go north of Vegas, you get a couple of hours or 2-3 hours away. You're in Elko County.
Yeah.
Elko County is almost my anti-example of the rural area, because Elko County is full. There's thousands of 40-acre parcels up there. Yeah. I flipped a few hundred of them, actually, or a couple hundred of them, but or wholesaled. I call it flipping, but it's wholesaling.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there's nothing up there. It's not attractive. So what you do is, these are 40-acre parcels. They're worth $12,000. You get them for $1,500 and sell them for $6,000. So they're low-end deals that will find a buyer. But it's really more for, I don't know why people want to buy that stuff, because there's nothing to do there other than hunt rattlesnakes.
So explain this to me. Like, are you guys looking for Elko, or you're just done? Like, you've done it, but like
we stumbled upon Elko. There's the landowners out there as a weird breed. People either love land or they hate land, or they never want to own a piece of land.
When you said a rare breed, I thought you were gonna say something like incest, like
No.
interbreed.
No. Well, who knows what they do on the land? But anyway, that's a different story.
Yeah.
But no. But what I mean by that,
I think both are probably true. But yeah,
yeah, probably. So people either love land or they never think of land. They never even. But typically, what happens very often when you contact the landowner, they're like, well, which of my pieces of land do you want to buy?
you just got to buy.
And you're like, well, which ones do we have? I wrote you the letter for this one you have in this county. And they're like, well, I got this one and I got 5 more in this state, this state, this state, this state. And that's actually a great way to discover new areas around the country where you can also flip them. And that's how we came across Elko. We came across one lady that had 25 lots. Now, she passed away, and the Bank of Hawaii I think she's retired in Hawaii, had accounts in Hawaii, and she had a property in Arizona that we sent her a letter for, and it was forwarded to the Bank of Hawaii, and the Bank of Hawaii sent us a letter back, says like, yeah, we're interested in selling that one, and we're also interested in selling the other 24 she has. We're like, great, well, that she has, but she passed away. And so we made her a super low offer. I think we offered them like $3,000 for all these 25 lots.
All of them.
All of them. They accepted. And they had about $10,000 in back taxes. And we took the top 2 of them, sold them quickly, made $10,000, used them to pay the back taxes on the other ones. And a few had already been lost for back taxes. So we ended up basically with 20 lots, sold 2 very quickly, and had 18 lots free and clear now.
Yeah.
And these 18 lots were like in 5 different states. One of them was in Indiana, 2 or 3 lots were in Florida, a couple of lots were in Hawaii, some lots were in Nevada, some lots were in New Mexico. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, great, we have never sent any mail to them. We never contacted any owners there. Well, we got them free and clear. Every dollar from this up is profit.
Yeah.
Let's just go market them. And we discovered that some areas were crappy. We got like $2,000-$3,000 for the lots. In some areas, we were selling those things for 35, 40, 50 grand.
Wow.
And we're like, great, let's go back there.
Those areas, yeah.
And Elko was one of these areas, and the profit margins were not bad. I mean, we sold them for like $8,000 to $10,000.
Yeah.
We're like, well, let's see if we can get some more in Elko. And then we got some more for like $1,500, $2,000. But I don't think I ever picked up a 40-acre parcel in Elko for more than $2,000.
Yeah.
And then we turned around. Usually the 40 ones would sell for 8 to 10. But that's okay margin. I mean, it's nothing great, but the effort is minimal.
Yeah.
You don't see it. You don't do anything. You just send out the letter. You get in a call. You make an offer, and you get a contract. And one of the things we do in our contract, because they're free and clear, there's no urgency in close on them. So it's the opposite of the typical house rehab or wholesaler, that there's an urgency and you have like, we buy your house in 7 days.
Yeah.
Does not exist in our market. Instead, we put on our contract that close of escrow is 6 months from now.
Right.
So we have 6 months to market that property,
Yeah.
which gives us plenty of time.
How do you find a buyer? Like in Elko?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Well, great. Well, there's 2 different ways. One, for Elko specifically, I would use social media. I would go on Facebook Marketplace. I would go on LinkedIn, on Zillow. I would go on Zillow, and I would go on land.com. Land.com has a subpage. It's called landwatch.com.
Okay.
And landwatch.com gets like 3.5 million visitors a month and has about 350,000 land pieces that are listed there.
Okay.
So basically 3.5 million people a month go and look for land there. So you can position it, you can buy there. This is a paid advertising on there, but Zillow and Facebook Marketplace and so on are for free. Just read a message from one of our students this morning that he put something up yesterday, and by today he had 100 inquiries on Facebook Marketplace already.
And the good thing is you can go get more now in Elko.
Right.
Because you're developing a buyer's list out there.
Exactly right. And
Yeah.
then after you have a buyer's list, then it becomes super easy. Then you just get some more and send it to a buyer's list, and you just discount them, and you just like, it's rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
It's very simple at that point.
So what do these people do with the land in Elko? Like, what are they doing with it?
I have no idea what they do with the land in Elko. Actually, literally. I mean,
You own 48. Is it just to say, hey, I own real estate? Actually, now I think about it, I don't know if it was your program or someone else's, but like one of the features of the program was that they gifted the students like land like that. It was like, they'd get this land for like $2,000, and the first thing they would do is transfer over the land and say, hey, look, you're now a real estate investor.
Right.
You can
I
say.
know the gentleman who does that. Yeah, it's
Okay.
a Brazilian guy. So I know, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was, but I heard
Yeah.
that story and I was like, that's not a bad idea. Like
Yeah.
everybody, like you have a deal.
We don't do that currently, but we're considering it. So
Yeah.
that's actually, we talked about that a bunch of times. Why not when somebody enrolls in coaching, why not giving them a piece of land
That's what
right
I'm
away
saying.
so that they can start working on the sale right away? It's actually something that we have been playing with the thought, and because we can get unlimited amount of land
Exactly.
and that's pieces of land, and that's not a problem.
Let me
So
know in the
Elko
comments.
guys, I mean,
Let
it's
me-
often the recreational guys.
Yeah.
Because actually Elko is so open.
Yeah.
And there's nothing there other than tumbleweeds, that it's actually the people that love to go out with the RV. It's the RV crowd. That's the
Okay.
answer.
Got
So
it.
the RV crowd, particularly in that case with quads and dirt bikes and razors, because it's open land. It's not a 40-acre parcel that's fenced.
No, yeah.
There's 540-acre parcels, and there's not a fence anywhere inside, and it's all flat.
Yeah.
So flat with some dry washes and stuff in there. So it's fun off-road terrain that you can just go crazy, and there's not a person in mind. And that's the buyer for that kind of property.
Got it. Okay, so you're saying though, like Elko's not like a focus because
Right.
it's cheap. You're not really going
And it's
to
not
these
attractive,
remote.
other than if you want to just take your dirt bike or your quad or your razor and just go crazy, and that's attractive for a lot of people. So when you go out to Elko, and I have been to Elko, you see like an RV here and an RV there, and they always have a bunch of dirt bikes out there. That's what people do out there.
Yeah.
Right? The more typical recreational property is more like 40 acres out in Flagstaff, or if you're in Atlanta, Georgia, in the Smoky Mountains, 20 acres up in the Smoky Mountains, where you have a creek going through it, where there's pine trees, where you can have a campground and things, or over time you build a cabin over there, something like that. That's truly attractive. It's smoldering hot and humid in Atlanta, Georgia. Nobody wants to be there in summer, but you drive 2 hours north and you got that, right? Plus, Smoky Mountains, you go from Chattanooga, you go from Charleston. It's from 3-4 different angles. You got like something like 8 million people that potentially are interested in that piece of land because it's right there, just a couple of hours away from them. Same thing with like if you're St. Louis, you go into the like Branson, Missouri, like the Ozarks, that kind of area. There's lakes out there. There's hiking. There's biking. There's weekend, just like be out in nature. Denver, Colorado, Rocky Mountains, right? You can go out into all these kind of things there that people enjoy, and these large recreational properties, they appeal to the outdoors people very simply.
Right.
The infill lots, they appeal actually. If I can bring those up, the infill lots, they have gone like this in demand over the last 3 years.
Yeah, explain what an infill lot is for those who don't know.
Actually, sorry, not the infill lots. Well, the infill lot is basically, think about a street, 35 houses, one empty lot.
Yep.
It's ready to be built on. It's ready to be filled on. They are in demand right crazy because builders are building still. I mean, the market, there's not much inventory. The prices haven't really gone down much in most markets. And if this is a neighborhood of $500,000 houses, it is worth for a builder to build that house there if he can get that lot for under 100K.
Yeah.
So you get the lot for 60 and immediately call 3-4 small builders, and they will pick it up the next day for 80 from you, and you make $20,000.
Yeah.
The second kind of lot is more like the one in the outskirts of town. That one is the one where demand went like crazy up due to the fact that half of us now work from home. Because what that has allowed people to do is to work from anywhere, and not everyone wants to live in the city. Like, you bought a mountain, you want to live in the city, and I love that deal. Like,
Yeah.
you explained it to me when we sat together a couple
Yeah.
of years ago already. Love that deal. I can't wait to see that house when you build it.
Yeah.
And but most people want to. I don't want to live in the countryside, but there's a lot of people that want to have like 5 acres, 5 or 10 or 20 miles outside of town, so they can have some goats, they can have some chicken, they can have some space, because 5 acres is the size of 5 football fields.
Yeah.
That's a lot of land.
Yep.
In most cities, they put 5 to 7 houses on 1 acre. Mm-hmm. So now you have 5 acres for one house. It's a lot of space, but now what they do is they can work there, because another invention came in, and that is is it Starlink?
Yeah.
Starlink from
Elon.
Musk Starlink didn't exist like 10 years ago. It came up whenever. It really came up like in the last 3-4 years ago, and in the last 3-4-5 years. And and Elon Musk has put 4,500 satellites around the globe and is putting more almost every other week. And with that, you now have streaming quality internet where you just 5 years ago did not even have cell phone reception.
Right.
That has changed the game. Those two things have changed the game because we're still about 45% of the population in the US works from home.
Yeah.
That is 60 million people. So that 60 million people in the United States work from home. Even if just 5% of them say, you know what, I would love to have more space, and it's more than that, you got millions of people that are looking for a piece of land that's outside of town, that they can build a house on. They can get Starlink to go on there. They have broadband internet out there, and if they need to go into town, they're in town in half an hour.
Right.
And that has completely changed the game, and that has put that kind of market on fire, independent of anything else that's going on in the real estate industry. And that's why I'm saying, like, what real estate slump? In our industry, we haven't seen any real estate slump. COVID has made RV industry go through the sky, because when people say, like, when people couldn't go travel international, they wanted to travel domestically, so they bought RVs.
Right.
And all these people with RVs, they want to paint their RVs somewhere. So the recreational properties went through the roof. And now with everyone working at home, these properties on the path of growth went through the roof. And that is not expected to slow down. So our market is on fire and continues to be on fire.
So what's your strategy then? And by the way, I agree. I think even guys like me, I enjoy having land, you know. Right now I have a half acre, which is a ton in Vegas. You know, it's like there's no 5 acre parcels that houses in Vegas are built on.
Yeah.
It's very rare. So I love land, and I think that more people are starting to want to do those things like farms and everything. My wife told me the other day, she's like, I want a chicken coop in the next house. I'm like, why? It would be cool, like, to have chickens and fresh eggs. And I'm like, okay, whatever, you know, but you need land. So. Right.
Yeah. And I mean, we have mutual friends in the industry that live in Texas or wherever they live. And they're like, you know what, they now start buying their own ranch. And that's a really fun thing for people to do, particularly as, like, around the world, crazy stuff happens, and more people are like, you know what, let me have a little piece outside too. So the affluent are buying land, and the people who have worked for virtually want to buy land, and it's just, land is hot again.
So we're talking about those ones, but for me, one area of land that I look at is luxury land, because I'm, like, looking at it selfishly, and so I understand the market, and I know what people are willing to pay, and I'm looking at it through a development perspective. Do you guys ever do that?
So it's not our focus, but we have people in our organization, particularly some of our coaches, that do that. There's several coaches in our company that specialize on the high-end properties. They've done multi-million-dollar land. They've done development deals that they wholesaled. They didn't do the development themselves, but I'm thinking of one of them that just last year got a deal on a contract for something like $1.7 million, and it was worth more like $5 million.
Yep.
And I think she wholesaled it for about 3-point-something million dollars, made like $1.5 million. Obviously, she could have also kept that, developed that. And actually, another one of our coaches, a couple, they just came across 25 lots. And it was a failed development, and they decided to finish it. So they got that, and as a wholesale deal, they would have made $20,000 a lot. That would have been like $500,000. But they actually gotten a builder to finish them all up, and they're selling right now, and they're making now $95,000 a deal instead of $20,000. So that obviously now makes it $2.5 million instead of $500,000. So yes, you can apply the same strategy to that. You gotta have to put a little bit more into the follow-up.
Yeah.
Because those deals don't. The people who own them are usually also a little bit more affluent and so on. But yes, we have done one luxury land deal actually this year, which took forever to do because the seller wanted to first listed it, and then it was a difficult lot on a hill, but with fantastic views right there in Phoenix, in Paradise Valley, which is like the Beverly Hills of Phoenix.
I've done a home tour there.
Right, cool. And at the end of the day, it didn't sell, and so finally I brought in a developer friend of mine, and together we got that deal done, and we made something like $100,000 and he had the buyer lined up, and the buyer wanted to build now. It's gonna, at the end of the day, it's gonna be something like an $8 million home on there. But yes, those deals can also be done using the same strategy. We just don't focus on them.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think with the luxury land and everything else, it just involves way more creativity to, it's not plug and play. Like when people ask us, hey, do you guys flip luxury homes and stuff? We're like, we have, but it's not plug and play like flipping the entry level normal homes, because everything's the exact same. The paint, the flooring, everything. It's a system. Right. But every time we get a luxury house, it's like, all right, well, let's bring in the designer. Let's figure out what's going to be. Like it's a big lift to do luxury.
And also, particularly if I'm thinking about the beginning student again, like you are too, it requires a different comfort level of talking with somebody, because typically those sellers are more sophisticated. You gotta be a little bit more confident to talk to them. And so obviously we can do this all day long, but somebody comes in that as a brand new student has never done that, might be a little bit intimidated or something about anything in real estate. They might not be ready to have that conversation yet.
How often do you do commercial land?
Actually, quite often. It comes in. It's definitely not something we focus on again, but it comes in, and those are some of the deals that make the most money.
Interesting.
They're often a little bit harder to sell because a commercial piece of land needs a very specific buyer. Yeah. So putting that on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace might not be the strategy to do. That one might a better strategy for that is to find a good commercial realtor that has a Rolodex, has a list of buyers already, and then actually have that person sell it. And actually those people, those realtors can actually sell them usually very quickly.
Okay. By the way, I want to put it out there for your students who might be listening, and for anyone listening to this show. So I am looking for now about 700 to 1,000 acres in a beautiful scenic town that's affluent, preferably on the West Coast. So think like Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, somewhere like that, mountainous, trees, all that stuff. And my vision is, let's just say I have 1,000 acres. My original goal was 400 acres, but now that I've done planning and I've talked to people, I need 1,000. So I'm going to build a golf course, and I'm going to build a community and a development, and it'll probably have like 250 homes or so. And I want to donate a piece of that and build this Christian retreat center where we're going to have like amphitheater and kids stuff and marriage stuff, and it's going to be sick. And then what I want to do with that is have commercial real estate owned by the nonprofit that'll cash flow the retreat center. And then it'll also be commercial for, that area. So, they got places to eat and whatever's in the commercial center. So that's my big vision. So whoever can find me that land, like I'm a ready and willing buyer. And if we can get the seller to seller finance it, even better.
All right. Send me a message about that. I'll put into our student community. There's Facebook group, student community. There's thousands of deals that are happening every single year, and people find stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I know. So I'm not even looking for myself. I'm just putting the vision out there, and whoever brings it, you're going to be supporting a good cause. You're going to make some money, but you got to know it can't be in the middle of nowhere. It's got to be like an already affluent area that, people want to live in. It's like a second home. So,
beautiful.
Yeah. Speaking of that too, I've seen other guys in this space, like I guess I would call them consolidators. And like these guys get land locked up and all these things, and they try to consolidate them for home builders or developers and everything else. Because it's hard. Like when you want to do something big, like I'm talking about, you got to usually get multiple pieces all lined up together.
So you got to do the Disney model, right? Where Walt Disney in Florida, he bought all the land up, and it wasn't Disneyland, Disney World as it exists wasn't one parcel.
Yeah.
It was hundreds of parcels. So he had to do it obviously secretly through all kinds of law firms. He went in and bought all the pieces together and until he had it assembled what he needed, and then it became known, Disney, because otherwise prices would have gone through the roof when you do that. So if you have to do that, and if it's a whole bunch of properties, that might be a good strategy. Get a couple of law firms involved that actually make the offers for you and then pass the land on to you. But Bess, these assembly, that's actually like one of the things we teach, and we and again in our company, in our universe, in our coaches environment, and so also some do, is we teach this pyramid of like pyramid of wealth creation. And one of them is like the bottom part is simply land flipping, like land wholesaling, land seller financing. It's just the cookie cutter kind of stuff. Like just start with that, do just repeat, rinse and repeat, do that again and again. Beyond that, the next thing comes land splitting.
Okay.
Like, because you can simply, the simplest way to 10x your profits is by taking, like, say, a 10-acre parcel you find somewhere on a road outside of town, and usually would flip it for $30,000 profit, but by splitting it into 10 lots, you now make $30,000 a pop, and you make $300,000 on the deal. The next level up is actually exactly that, is now consolidating land. Usually you do that in the city. Again, it's not something we specialize on, but but in our universe, several people have done it. So if anyone is interested, I can put them together with them. But that's exactly right, because the thinking behind here is very simply that in the city, it's actually the exact opposite of the rural areas. In the rural areas, the larger the property, the lower the price per acre. Because if somebody wants a large piece of land, it doesn't really matter to them if they have 20 acres or 40 acres.
There's a huge supply of it.
Yeah. Plus also, at some point of time, you have enough land. So the extra 20 acres is not going to improve your enjoyment of the land a whole lot more. So you're not willing to pay double from a 20 to a 40 acre parcel, because 20 acres is already 20 football fields. So you can do a lot on that. But in the city, it's the exact opposite. If you have an acre, it's not enough to put a 200-unit apartment complex on it. But if you have 4 acres, you can do it. So how do you put that together? Well, you see there's a 2 acre here, and there's a 1 acre there, and there's a house over there. By putting them all together and tying them all up together, now you got something that is exponentially worth more than actually the individual pieces. And that's the thinking behind it. And I have several friends that have done that. We have not personally.
Because you just got to think about the developer. It's like, man, all right, I'm really good at building 200-unit apartment buildings, and I know they're going to crush in this area of town, but literally it's impossible to do it. There's just nothing available. And, you come to the table and you lock this stuff up, and maybe you got them all under contract for $1 million and separate, and to the developer, they're like, dude, I freaking pay $3-4 million for it. It's not a big deal.
And it actually allows you to pay market price on each of these places. You don't have to negotiate.
No.
You don't have to get motivated sellers.
You can pay more.
Something. Exactly, right. You pay, like, it's the 2 acres is worth $500K, you pay $500K. The 1 acre is worth $300K, you pay $300K. The house is worth $500K, you pay $500K. Now you're 1.2, but together they're worth 3.5. Like exactly. Literally. And now you wholesale it for 2, and you make $700,000 on the deal.
Speaking of, you said splitting lots, which I think is great too. What about getting zoning changes?
That is a little bit more of a risky game than anything else, because you have to deal now with the government. And you have to deal with the neighbors.
Splitting lots, isn't it similar too anyways?
No, because you don't change the zoning. If the zoning is something that the minimum lot size is an acre, and you got 10 acres, then nobody can prevent you from splitting it into 10 acres as long as you follow the proper rules and getting a surveyor out there and get the new pins put in and things like that, get new drawings created so that you submit it and go to the proper approval processes. That might take you 3 months in some states. It might take you 6 weeks in another one, might take you half a year in another one. Rezoning includes hearing of all the neighborhood, includes the political parties and what their opinion is about, should we allow more development or should we not allow more development. You're starting to get into that zone of people pitting against each other. And one of our coaches got this beautiful piece in rural Arizona under contract, and it was right next to an RV park. And he wanted to rezone it to also allow for an RV park, because that RV park was constantly full. And he's like, there's more demand for that. Let me add a second RV park here. And he bought it, and he went through the rezoning process. But then all the neighbors in the area, even though they were like every mile there was only one neighbor, they came up rallying against it because they wanted to live in their nature. They don't want more people around. And at the end of the day, the county denied it. So now he had spent the money on the property, spent the money on the redrawing, spent the money on all the applications, spent a year and a half, and it got denied. So he just had, at the end of the day, he sold it, and he made a little money because he gotten it through using our technique for pennies on the dollar. So he still made some money, but it was a lot of effort for almost nothing. So this is something You can, but it's a more riskier thing that can backfire on you.
Yeah. I guess the only way to kind of mitigate the risk is if you get the seller to give you just contingency on that.
Right. Yeah, you do and that's actually all the developers that I know.
Yeah.
That we just recently signed an agreement with a friend of us that we're going to find the land and he's going to develop it. And now I have no experience in develop. We just flip, right? And then we take the money and we buy multifamilies with it. We have almost 1,000 units, but development is something that we are just now getting into, and we're getting into with a experienced partner.
Yeah.
Where we're finding the land, but then it's very, very clear. Every land sale agreement or purchase agreement is going to be contingent upon approval of what we want to do. And if we can't get the approval, ultimately, including a rezoning or whatever it might require, then we can back out of the deal, and we have only lost the fees and the
due diligence costs.
The due diligence costs, which is cost of doing business.
Yeah. No, and so like for me, I've already actually negotiated a couple of these parcels for the golf course that I really want to do. And, the big thing is like, obviously, when you're going to try and go do this size of a development, like you need a lot of approvals and
Right.
different things, and especially with water rights and all this stuff. So I know exactly what you're talking about. And like, even with deals, I'm like, no, like it needs to get approved. I'm not going to buy this thing if I can't do what I want to do on it. It's worthless. But the thing that's been really cool for me to see with land, and why I'm like becoming more and more attracted to it, is because like I got my start flipping houses and wholesaling, and we've bought multifamily, and we're going to always do those things. But I love land for two reasons. One is the creativity of it. It's like, man, I am such a creative person.
You can do so much with land. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, let's do this. You could put a golf course. You could put this. You could do like, I love that it's just a blank slate. So that's number one. Number two, I think that the way you perceive a piece of land can like infinitely make it more valuable than just other things. Like the house is the house. There's only so much you can do to it to improve its value. Even a multifamily, there's only so much you can do to improve the value. But like, I'm just looking at, take this golf course, for example. It's like, okay, if you had 250 lots, and let's just say the average lot was $500,000, right? Or to do easy math, let's say it's 300 lots, $500,000. That's $150 million in land sales. Now that's not counting everything else that's going to happen, because, you're going to build the houses. There's going to be commissions and resale. Like you're talking like this piece of land is going to generate hundreds of millions in revenue from an idea.
Right.
And also this piece of land, you could probably go get it for $5-10 million. Like the things I'm looking at.
Yeah.
So it's like, this land right now is worth $5-10 million as a raw piece of land, but this idea is now worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And so the way I look at it is like, well, it's kind of just like starting a business. It's just, this is your template at which you're going to build the business on, and it can be as valuable as you want to make it.
Yeah. No, I agree. Absolutely. It's you can literally increase the value of the land 10x by making a few things, by like splitting it, or by rezoning it, or by just bringing utilities to it, or just simply building one house on it that is like a special kind of like a certain price level of house. Because particularly in the infill lots, with the way we value land in an infill situation, like again, 35 houses, one empty lot, is land is valued as a percentage of the house.
Right.
Because like if you have a neighborhood and there's only one empty lot, how do you run comparables? You can't. So you do it the way appraisers do it, and the appraisers do it by basically saying like, well, if the neighborhood land is worth, if the houses in the neighborhood are worth $500,000, then the land is worth like 25% of that. If the houses in the neighborhood are worth $2 million, well, then it's worth more like 40% of that, because it doesn't cost $5 million to build a house. So the land now is a $2 million piece of land.
Yeah.
So by designing a neighborhood with certain higher end homes, you basically force the value of the land to be substantially higher.
Right.
Too. So you can do all these kind of different things that you just simply can't do with a house.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love the creativity of land, and even with my own, the mountain deal. So I bought this piece of land for $600,000, and today, it's actually about to be listed. By the time this is, released, we'll have like relisted it. I got my guy Ivan Scher, who's been on the podcast before, listing it, but I think we're listing it for $5.5 million.
Wow.
As is. And I mean, that's a 10X.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it's not even from me doing anything. It was just from the fact that I understood it was undervalued. And I also knew that there was development that was going to be happening around it. To your point, like now there's a developer around it who's selling homes for $3 to $6 million.
Right.
And so just by nature, their lot prices are all going
with
up.
that, even if it wouldn't be on top of the hill, even if it wouldn't be as pretty as it is, even would it be as big as it is, it would already be worth $2.5 million, right?
Exactly. So, and they're selling their lots for, they're taking an acre and making it 4 lots, right? Mm-hmm. And so I have 2 acres. Now I don't think, I can make that many lots, but one thing I've also looked at, to your point, is lot splitting, because I'm actually going to sell it. Like I already moved into a different house, and so I don't really need this. And it's like freaking a lot of headache to build. So I'm like, okay, well, I would love somebody to just buy it as is, and I don't have to deal with anything. But probably the easier and more profitable thing to do is to split it and try to call it 5 lots. If you could get 5 lots at, 1.5 or something like that, you're going to make more money. And, there'll be some fees and stuff. And, it'll be more attractive for buyers to buy those kind of lots. So I don't know. You'd probably split it.
I would probably split it at those numbers. And if the neighborhood, what did you say? How much do the houses in the neighborhood sell for?
Well, so it's all development. So they're all brand new builds. But right now they're getting like 1.3 to 1.4 for like 10,000 square foot lots.
Okay. Well, yeah, then if you take those and build that into 5 of them, that would be $7.5 million. Even if the cost of it is like $100,000, which is not that much, not probably less than that, but you're still netting a couple million more than you probably will by just selling it the way it is. But then again, it also depends on how much effort you want to put into it. But I mean,
I think too, they're great.
$2 million swing.
It's a lot of money.
You can hire somebody to do it for you.
Yeah. I also think though that they're theirs are fully build ready lots, whereas mine's still raw. So like we'll have to, it'll definitely be way more than $100,000 to like truly.
True. Okay. That's true. Then to add the road access individual, the utilities, the things that'll add.
Well, we already have utilities.
Okay.
We already have road. We just have to grade. But it's a mountain, so grading.
Yeah, that can cost $75K, $100K per lot.
Yeah.
Right there too.
So like, it's like, do I want to dump, let's just say, $500,000 plus into actually doing this, and then how much time is it going to take? I don't know. Versus like,
I mean, I'm always the opinion, and that's why I preach to my at a certain point that doesn't apply anymore, but. But I always tell my people, hey, velocity of money is important too.
Right.
So you basically, instead of, on a low end deal, like instead of getting a deal that's worth $75,000 for $25,000 and holding on to to sell it for $75,000 with that market price might take you half a year.
Right.
Go sell that thing for $45,000 in a matter of 2 weeks, make $20,000, and then in that same time period, you can do 20 deals like that, and you made $400,000 instead of holding on to that extra $30,000 in profit that you wait for an extra half a year.
Yeah.
So if you, in your case, instead of that now taking an extra year or year and a half to do this, if you can net 5 right now, sell it for 5, and you can use that 5 and roll it right over into something else,
and that would be the plan.
Then it's probably the better way to just sell it if you have a place for it. If it then sits for years in a bank account, well, then no. Then it would have been better the other way.
No, and that's never a problem. There's no shortage of opportunities like where I'm just like, all right, freaking let's do this. Boom, 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 boom. So it's like, yeah. Anyways, one thing I actually had a question about was like your seller financing. So these buyers, right? You're doing some ads and stuff, and people are like, I want to put 20% down, and you go and get your money back. So you're like, this is great. From there, like, what's the rate of default? What kind of terms are you giving? How does that work?
So what we do is we ask usually for about 20% down. But again, it's a lot of the lots. We specialize on properties literally market value between $10,000 and about $500,000. That's our sweet spot.
Yeah.
And most of the lots though are between, let's say, $20,000 and $100,000. So it's a smaller stuff, but you can do high volume of it. So typically, it might sound like a strange answer, but as long as people, in my experience, because we have done a lot of also like lots that are only worth like 10 grand.
Yep.
As long as people pay at least $1,000 down, they don't default. Because to them, psychologically, that seems to be like a magic marker. The moment they pay, if they pay $100 down,
they don't care.
Sometimes they don't care. I mean, we've done mistakes, all the mistakes you can imagine. Right?
Yeah.
One day we had the brilliant idea of putting out an advertising that was a Cinco de Mayo, pesos for parcels. And we basically said, give us $5 down as a down, $5 as a down payment.
Oh, jeez.
And get the piece of land. We sold something like 50 pieces of land in like 3 days.
I bet you did.
And half of them never made their first payment.
Why would you? I mean, you're only in it for $5.
Right, exactly. So it's like, okay, let's never do that again, right? And we did something. We saw a Volkswagen commercial that says like, no money down, no closing costs, no things, no payments for the first 3 months. We were like, okay, let's do a 0-0-0 deal. And we sold another 50 properties. Again, half of them never put the dollar and never made their first payment.
Right.
Half of them did, though, but half of them didn't. And there was a pain to foreclose on them. So we never do this ever again. Now what we do is at the very limit, even if it's a $10,000 parcel, we're like, okay, give us at least a couple $1,000, $1,500 down, $2,000 down. And we've never had the default rate goes down to 3 to 6% at that
Got
point.
it.
So it's almost nothing.
Got
And
it.
that is over the course of the loan. So let's say you have 100 loans that you build up with an average payment of $500 a month.
Are they doing interest?
We're charging 12.9% interest.
Okay.
And some of our students even charge 15% interest. But that sounds high, and we charged it when the normal house mortgage rates were 3%, we charged 12.9% because we're living outside of the banking world anyway.
There's no loans for it.
There's no loans for the bank, and even if you could get a bank loan, even then the bank would have charged 7-8%.
Yeah.
So, and they would have only given you a 50% loan to value. So we're giving people a 90% loan to value. So we feel it's absolutely right, our right to charge 13% interest.
Yeah.
And nobody ever complains. People want to know how much do they pay for the land, how much down, and how much per month.
Well, I mean, even too, when you just look at the payment, it's not.
It's not much.
Yeah.
Right? It's $300, it's $400, it's $500.
Yeah.
But the point is, if you have 100 loans and you ask for the proper down payment, over the course of the next 10 years, between 3 and 6 of them are going to default. So basically, you have a default every 2 years.
Right.
That's nothing. And when you have a default, you don't service your own loans. Like we simply charge an extra $25 a month loan servicing fee.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what the loan servicing company that we hired charges. So it's a pass-through fee. So we have the loan servicing we hired a loan servicing company to take care of every single loan. They charge $25 a month. That's paid by the buyer. It's cost neutral to us. And when somebody stops paying, they send them the late letters. They send them the next letters, and they help with the foreclosure process too. So it's an almost hands-off process. And financially speaking, it's actually the best thing that could happen. Because you think about, let's say it's a $50,000 deal. You get under a contract for 10 grand. You sell it for 50 grand with a $10,000 down payment. You have your money back, all good. You have no money in the deal. They make $500 a month payments. Now they pay for 3 years. So they paid you $18,000, right? $500 a month, $6,000 a year. 3 years, it's $18,000. Now they stop making payments. Might cost you $1,000 to foreclose on them, depending on which document you use, which there's different kind of states have different rules, and you can use different kind of documents. Sometimes it costs you $50 to foreclose on them. In some other states, it might cost you $1,000. So worst case, costs you $1,000 to foreclose on them, but you already collected $18,000 of pure profit. So now you're still $17,000 ahead of the game, and then you get to resell it with another $10,000 down payment.
Yeah.
Or by now, the value of the land might actually be higher. You might get $12,000 or $15,000 as a down payment. So financially speaking, I'm hoping that they default because I get to get it back and I get to resell it again.
Yeah.
But of course, that's not our business model. We really don't want people to default. We want them to enjoy their land and pay it off and have that dream of property ownership.
Yeah. So I knew another guy that was doing this, and he was buying them in the middle of nowhere, but I don't know how it was being done, but he wasn't transferring ownership, on the seller finance. Maybe he's doing a lease option or something, right?
Yeah.
Like, to me, it seems like the headache of foreclosure on something so cheap is like a big headache.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
So we do the same thing. I mean, it depends on which state you're operating in. Like we, for example, we love using land contracts.
Yep.
And for example, a land contract is that kind of thing. It's an ownership transferring document, but it's an equity transferring document, but it's basically the same between a purchase and sale agreement and a loan agreement, both in one document, but you only give them a deed once they're paid off.
Right.
If you use that agreement, for example, in Nevada, we have a special document for Nevada. In Nevada, it's actually, I love Nevada, because it's if they stop paying, it actually turns into, and it's statutorily by the proven, it actually turns into a lease, and now you need to just evict them.
Yeah.
Which
exactly.
How do you evict somebody from a piece of land? You send them a letter. It says like, "Hey, you're evicted. You're done."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So in Nevada, it literally takes. You wait a couple of months, and it takes one letter, and you're done.
Wow.
In Arizona, there's certain forfeiture laws that allows you to foreclose in a matter of 3 weeks, and it costs you $50.
Right.
If you use that same in Texas, you can't use it. So you got to use slightly different documentation in different states. But also a lot of, especially in the lower end kind of products, most of our students and our coaches and ourselves, we use a lease purchase agreement.
Yeah.
With rent credit.
Right.
So they basically make monthly payments of the $300, and we give them $100 towards the future purchase price of the property. And if they bought this thing for $10,000, it's 100 payments. After 100 payments, their future purchase price is $0, and at that point we give them a deed. If they stop making payments, they broke the lease.
Exactly.
Right?
Okay.
So those
you're doing
things,
it the same way.
absolutely, we're doing the same thing. It just depends on which state you want to do this. You do this in what property. If you have a $100,000 sale and they give you a $25,000 down, they probably
they're going to want a transfer.
They want a transfer. They want a deed of trust, a note. Then you do that, and then if you then have a foreclosure. But I don't think I've ever had a foreclosure where somebody gave us $25K down.
Right. Yeah, that would be rare. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And, you made me think about it with land contracts, because, you hear about these land purchase agreements and land contracts. And I've always just looked at them and I'm like, people call this type of contract just so many different things. And now that we're talking about land, I'm like, how did it get its roots in land? I still don't
I
really...
can tell you how it did. Yeah. No, that's actually a funny story. That back in the 60s and 70s, there was a bunch of land scammers out there.
Okay.
And particularly in Nevada, Arizona, but also in Florida. Those are the 3 states that they were mostly, and a little bit in California. Those are the 4 states that are mostly around. What they did is they bought square miles worth of stuff, like entire square miles, 20, 30 square miles worth of land. And then they put up a sales office under, and they subdivided it all into usually 2.5 acre or 1.5 acre or 5 acre parcels. And they would sell them individually, and they came up with that document, and because it was used for land, that gave it the name, the land contract. The problem with these guys was that they would set up an office close to the interstate, like Route 66 or something like that, and would put those things close to the street. So when the travelers on Route 66 would take a stop at a gas station or so, they had their booth there, they had their place there, and they would invite them to take a tour. And they would show them the tour. They would go down the dirt roads, and they would show them the plans that would become the next Palm Springs. And we're planning this convention center. And we're planning this, and we're planning that. And here's the palm trees. And look at the water hydrants. Yeah. And then the night when they leave, they would take a pickup truck, and they would pick up the water hydrants again. So it was all fake. It was completely fake. So they scammed off a bunch of people, sold every piece of land, in some cases even double. Took the government and 20, 30 years afterwards to clean this all up. And then basically they took off and went on and did it again. Now, all of them got caught. All of them died in prison, which is a good thing.
Wow.
But ultimately, they all went to prison. But there's still a lot of these unfinished subdivisions around. And what the document that they used were land contracts for it. And that's how it, I believe, got the name land contract, because it was used mostly for these kind of thousands and thousands of land transactions out there.
Wow. That's a cool story.
But you can use it for houses. You can use the same thing for houses. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time people are like, well, you could just use a land contract for that. You could do this. And
funny enough now, though, is we get a lot of these deals now come to us or to our students, because what happens is that these sellers, they bought these pieces of land with the expectation that it's going to be turning into this resort town.
Yeah.
But it never did.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're disillusioned with a piece of land, and they think that piece of land is worth nothing. But that's far from the truth, because, you know people, I know people, probably the listeners here know people that would love to have a 5 acre, 2.5 acre, 10 acre, 20 acre, whatever, 5 acre parcel out there in the rural areas that they can go and completely disconnect for the weekend.
Yeah.
Right. So the solution is not somebody else. It's kind of like one person's trash is another person's treasure. These are not worthless properties. They're still worth $25,000. I mean, our 15-year-old is going to our coaching program right now. Just this week, she got our first land deal. And it's a property like that. It's not in one of these development, but it's like out in the more rural areas. It's 5 acres. It's worth $25,000. And she got it for $4,500 from somebody that's just disillusioned, that was expecting it to develop into something big, and it didn't.
Yeah.
So we're just repositioning it and positioning it out to the RV market, to the outdoors market, to the dirt bike market, and they're going to eat that thing up. They're going to love it, and they're going to sell it. And it's a smaller deal, but she'll make like 10 grand as a 15-year-old. That's pretty good.
So would you say it's easier to get deals is it harder to get deals or harder to find the buyer?
I think neither one of them is really hard, but it depends on who you are as a person. We have if you're this introverted, shy person that doesn't want to talk to anyone ever, then getting the deals is easier than selling them.
Yeah. Okay.
Or you need to work around that personality and work with like virtual assistants or with a really good realtor and have somebody else sell it for you. Because on the selling side, you do have to communicate with some people, because you might get 100 inquiries. And a lot of them happens by text, by the way.
Right.
Nowadays, people don't talk on the phone, but eventually you want to get on the phone with a couple of people and develop a little bit of sales skills over time. If you don't want to do that, not a problem. You can get a realtor to sell those properties for you. If you're a little bit more like, okay, let's do this, like more outgoing and so on, then the sale is super easy. You just need to then have the diligency and to make sure that you do the proper follow-up processes to get the deals coming in.
Yeah.
Right. So it's almost like if you're very like all over the place and more like this outgoing, like fun-loving whatever person, then the selling is like perfect, because you get to talk to people and do deals and so on.
Yeah.
But the more structured approach to the buying is going to be harder. And if you're the opposite, then buying is not a problem, and selling is a little bit more harder, because it requires you to step out of your comfort zone a little bit more.
Yeah. I'm just thinking from the perspective of a business owner. If I wanted to start like taking land seriously and, wholesaling and flipping and everything else, I'm just thinking, okay, what do you pay the acquisitions guy? What do you pay the dispositions guy? And usually acquisitions gets paid more than dispositions. But in this case, I'm kind of thinking like they might be equal, or dispositions might be even more valuable.
Dispositions, yeah.
Is more valuable.
Disposition more.
Yeah.
Because you can get an unlimited amount of deals coming in.
Yep.
But it's not required skill, but you have to, if you have some sales skills or your development, if not, you just hire a realtor for it, get it out to a realtor. But then that is, it requires a little bit more follow-up. There's like the American psyche, let's say, is a little bit different than other countries. And I noticed they're like that. Like my German students tell me, they struggle with the sales at the beginning often, because the Germans are like, you say you do something, you do it. Like my friends in Germany, like I come to Germany and I was like, hey, let's meet. If I just casually say like, hey, we should have coffee, they fully expect me to call the next day and schedule coffee. And if I don't, they're pissed. They're upset. Because like you say what you do and you do what you say. And that's like, so now they're coming to the US and they're doing deals from Germany in the US. And the typical American buyer says like, oh yeah, I'm interested in the property. Oh yeah, great. I'm going to look at it this weekend and I'll call you next week. What do? They don't call. They don't call, exactly. They don't call. So it's a cultural difference and cultural adjustments that the Germans have to make. But once they make that adjustments, they're like, okay, what it means I have to follow up with that guy.
What it means is I'm not going to call you. Please call me if you want me to talk
exactly
to
you. Right. So you need to make that adjustment. And if you can make that adjustments, then boom, you crush it on both ends of it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, because like with houses, dispositions is not as important.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, if I'm going to go sell a flip, it's going to sell. We're going to throw it up. People are going to see it on Zillow. Like, it's going to sell.
You can actually automate most of the acquisition part of it. with follow-up systems and stuff like that. My 15-year-old has talked to 2 sellers right now, and she's already gotten 2 deals.
Yeah.
So that's it. So there's a very well-oiled follow-up system that we put in place that is mostly automated and requires very little interaction.
Yeah.
And the sales side is where the human aspect comes in a little bit more if you do it yourselves.
Yeah. So the real sales on the dispositions. That's what I was thinking.
And you pay those a little bit more.
Yeah. It's funny. I had one friend who he went in direct mailed, I don't know, 1,000 pieces of land. And he just sent a contract. Mm-hmm. And it's just like he gets it back and is like, all right, we got 20 deals. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's a blind offer strategy. We use that too, and that works really well, particularly if you know an area already somewhat.
Yeah.
Then it's a great strategy because it requires you to estimate the value up front.
Right.
You don't want to do that if the area looks like this and is like every property is completely different in size and structure and
if you're an Elko, they're all the same.
Exactly.
Just freaking blast them.
Exactly right. In Elko, you can literally get a list and say like everything that's 20 acres gets this price. Everything's 40 acres gets this price. Everything 10 acres gets this price. And you blast them out and you'll get lots of accepted offers. Yes.
Yeah. Because nobody's hitting them up.
Right.
You have no competition. But then to your point, then the disposition becomes the hard part. Like, all right, we got to find a buyer for this thing now.
It's not hard, but it's just a little bit more involved because you got to create a listing, you got to put it out there, you got to follow up with the people and that. And if you want to do this in high volume, you probably want to hire a couple, at least a VA. Like I have a VA I have 2 people only on the disposition side. One is a VA. Well, there's 3 people. 2 are VAs and 1 is a sales guy.
Okay.
So one creates the listings and puts them out there and refreshes them and changes pricing. The second one is a basically pre-sales kind of person. He feels the contact and he follows up and all the texting. And once somebody says like, hey, yeah, I'm ready to talk on the phone, he'll pass it on. It's almost
He's a setter.
He's a setter. And he passes it on to the sales guy who closes them and sells the deal. And with that little team, we can do 30, 50 deals a month.
What about on the acquisition side?
On the acquisition side, we have one person also that basically it's just like my assistant basically. We send out, it's really, the letters all can be done online. We have a CRM that's an end-to-end CRM that's connected to a good data source. So we just go in, or my assistant goes in and she just like on a regular basis sends out more letters. Then what the phone calls are being taken by a call center, gets put in there. Then also that same person does the value analysis, figures out what the properties are worth. Then I still decide what to offer. That's the only thing I still do. And I set the sale prices at the tail end. And then they send out the offer. And then at the point we send out a follow-up offer. We send out a direct text message. We send out a virtual voicemail. All those kind of things, like a live broadcast kind of thing. And in a certain sequence. And with that, people do call in. But then basically somebody else takes that negotiation. And so one person can do all of that. Perhaps if you do a lot of volume, you can do 2 people can do that. And you have 2 people on the acquisition side, and in our case, 3 people on the disposition side. And with that, you can do several hundred deals a year.
Right. Would you say,
which is one of the big differences? I mean, if you think about several hundred deals in the house side,
dudes,
you can't do that with 3 VAs and a full-time salesperson.
Yeah. What would you say? Okay, so doing couple hundred deals. Obviously, the mix is going to be what I would call pay in fulls versus payment plans, right?
Right.
So what do you think like the actual revenue would be from that?
For if you do a couple hundred deals?
Yeah.
Well, our typical student average is $15,000 a deal.
Okay.
So,
but how much are they collecting up front out of the 15?
So that changes a little bit with the economy. Right now, we're a little bit in a more, I don't know what to call this economy. Where are we? Are we in a recession? Are we in a boom? Are we not? Are we what? Who knows?
It's a confused economy.
It's a confused economy, exactly. So right now in a confused economy and in a recession, people drastically go towards the self-financing model.
Yeah.
Not because they don't have the money, just because they don't want to put all their money into one thing and then don't have the liquidity.
Yeah.
The moment the economy picks back up is when they all pay off their loans, or a lot of them pay off their loans. So what happens right now is you might get 80% of your buyers wanting to put wanted to have seller financing. And if you do it right, in a large number of these deals, what you get the deal for and what the down payment is close to a wash.
Right.
Not always.
Right.
Not always. So not always, when it happens that it's not, when you get way less, in down payment than what you pay the property for, you have two choices. Choice one is if you have the money, you just pay the gap, because it's actually not a bad return on your money.
Yeah.
You think about, let's pick a deal. It's a $100,000 property. You sell it for $100,000 with seller financing, and somebody gives you $20,000 down.
Yeah.
But you have it under contract for $45,000.
Yeah.
So you're negative $25,000 because you have to pay the seller $45,000 and the buyer only gives you $20,000. So if you right, makes sense, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if you have the choice. If you have the money, great. You pay the $25,000 and you have a monthly payment on that loan of an $80,000 loan, right? You sold it at $100,000, $20,000 down, you have an $80,000 loan. The monthly payment on that is probably around $1,000, let's say.
Right.
So if you think about it, you have $25,000 outstanding and you're getting $12,000 a year in payments. Mm-hmm. That's a good return on your $25,000.
Yeah.
That's a 45% return on your money.
Yeah.
So if you have the money, it's not a bad thing to actually self-fund the gap.
Yeah.
If you don't have the money, what you can do is what we also now teach in our, particularly to our coaching students, is what we call a triple close, and it's basically creative finance. We put the deal under contract for $100,000. We put the deal on the seller side we put the deal on the contract for $45,000 for the seller.
Yep.
We put the deal on the contract for the selling side for $100,000
Yep.
with the seller with a 20% down payment. We have a gap of $25,000. So what we do is we find a note buyer that comes into the closing table, and on the same closing table, they buy that $80,000 note for $70,000. So they're putting in $70,000. The buyer puts in $20,000. Title company now has $95,000 in the bank. Title company now sends $45,000 to the seller, perhaps charges $3,000, or let's say $3,000 to $5,000 themselves for all the three different closings here. And basically now that means 95 minus 45 is 50. Now that leaves $45,000 that you make cash.
Yeah.
So you basically create the note, but you cash right out of the note on the closing table. And that's another way you can do that if you don't want to bridge that $25,000 gap.
Yeah. No, that's a great way to get cash. I would do that every time.
Yeah. And we do that. We have students that do that all the time. Now, I personally like to cover the gap.
Yeah,
because
it's a good return on your money.
Because
you don't have a better return.
What's the alternative? My money
Yeah.
sits in the bank at this, or I put in multifamily and it makes a 15 to 20% return, or I put it into other things and it makes perhaps again kind of good returns, 20, 30% or so. But here I'm getting 45, 50, 60, 70% on my money.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing.
But I guess the alternative is you find a lender for the gap and you pay them, call it 12%, it's a wash, and then you're getting infinite money on.
You can do that
rest.
too. Yeah, that's the other way. You find a lender for the gap, and pay that off. Usually those lenders though, they don't want to give you the money for 15 years.
Right.
So you still have to, in that case, either pay them off quicker. It means you
take no cash flow.
You take no cash flow until they are paid off, and then you have the tail end of it. You have then all the cash flow.
Yeah.
You can do that too, and those are some of
That's not a bad strategy.
Some of more advanced creative financing strategies that are being used by our students, by our coaches, by us.
Yeah. So if someone's interested, where would they find out more about this?
So they can go, I have a podcast called The Jack Bosch Show.
Okay.
Right? And they can go to Land Profit Fun like having fun,
Yeah.
F-U-N. So not with a D, without a D, landprofitfun.com and check out what we do. You can also check me out on social media. Obviously, Jack Bosch is pretty much my handle everywhere. And yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we'll link to that down below. But Jack, dude, it's always good to see you, man. Appreciate you sharing some knowledge about land. We've never had a land guy, so I think everyone learned a ton today. I myself have learned a ton, and as I dive more into land, I'm sure I'm gonna hit you up and pick your brain.
Anytime.
And so, yeah, dude, it's been good having you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, guys, make sure you subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Right now, no exaggeration, if I wanted to, I could buy probably 20 or 30 rentals per day, easily.
How many deals do you guys have right now?
I have 325 single family homes, and then I've got 1,700 multifamily. How are you able to do this without banks and without commercial loans? Well, the seller's selling to me on creative finance. They're letting me take over